Well, a pleasant good day. DJ Draper here, welcoming you to another episode of the Draper Dialogues. Today, it's part 2 of our interview with AWF veteran Ryan Cruz. This guy has been with the AWF well in excess of a decade and has traveled all over the United States in pursuit of wrestling supremacy. On today's part of the interview, we're going to explore with Ryan how wrestling's changed over his career, how he himself has changed in the ring throughout his career, and some other fun topics we're going to touch on with Ryan Cruz right here. It's part 2 on the Draper Dialogues. So we mentioned you've been around a while. I want to say you're one of the few guys that's still around who's been doing this longer than I've been around this whole crazy thing. How would you say that wrestling on the independent level here has changed since 2004 when you first started?
Wow, that's a really good question. And it kind of depends on where you're looking as well, because back in 2004, like Midwest wrestling and the coasts were just like oil and water. It was such a different style of wrestling. I've always said that here in Minnesota, people appreciate like the simplicity of it. Like you don't need to go out there and like kill yourselves with head drop after head drop after head drop, where you go out to the East Coast or even like down to Chicago and you like almost have to hit somebody with a car to be like, oh, that's something new and different that we haven't seen that'll get a reaction. But I think in the last even like 4 or 5 years, wrestling has started to become cool again, and people don't necessarily care about they appreciate the big flips and the head drops and stuff, but people just now appreciate athleticism and good entertainment, because a lot of the fans nowadays that weren't fans 5-6 years ago are fair weather fans that are just getting into it now because their friends are like, check this out, check out this Orange Cassidy guy who just wrestles in glasses and puts his hands in his pockets, and it's hilarious. So
on a main event on Wednesday nights nonetheless too,
with Chris Jericho, one of the absolute greats. So yeah, wrestling is it's gotten more of a caricature of itself, I feel, and that's made it a little bit more identifiable with people, just as a more of a form of entertainment, as opposed to these guys are trying to be actual sports athletes kind of thing.
And I just even think back to some of those matches that guys like Cody O'Neal would have with Cannon, and just, my God, how many times can you drop one another on your head? I don't want to really, I almost feel bad that I'm naming those two, but just what we know about brain damage now, it's like, and just to know that there's a different way to do this and present it where there's going to be that longevity there and you can still leave the fans watching with a good experience.
Exactly. You don't have, I now live by the motto of live to fight another day. I am a much different wrestler than I was 10 years ago. So that whole head drop and, stiff forearms up the side of the head, I used to do that up and down the road. Like that's how you made a name for yourself. That's how you got yourself over with the crowd and being a stiff worker. But I don't like getting hit that hard any more than I like hitting people that hard. If I wanted to do that, I would have joined MMA or boxing or something like that. Like, pro wrestling is supposed to be a violent looking dance to me. And yeah, we don't want to go out there and make it look stupid. But you don't need to get dropped on your head 6 times. If I'm in an actual fight with somebody and I pick them up and drop them on their head, chances are they're probably knocked out and the fight's over. So there's a sense of realism. There's a sense of living to fight another day. And it's just unrealistic. And also it's kind of just unfair to the rest of the people on the card if you're going to go out and do all that, because then they're more or less expecting that from the whole show.
Right, and you kind of answered a bit of my next question that I had for you here. So we talked about how wrestling itself has changed, but whether it's your persona or how you approach things or anything else, how have you changed as a wrestler over the years?
Yeah, I've toned it down. I've adopted more of a, I wouldn't necessarily say 100% this, but pretty close to like more of a Randy Orton style, where it's slower paced, it's methodical. I like to be a little bit more comedic.
I haven't seen anyone rip you online for chin locks. Okay, so that's
okay. Well, that works. But yeah, I mean, when it calls for it, I'll turn it up and meet guys where they're at with the energy. But for the most part, I look to interact with the fans and just create those spaces within the match where me and my opponent don't have to be beating each other up, killing each other to entertain the crowd. It's if I'm in the heel or the bad guy perspective, just keep him down long enough to yell at the crowd, and then when the baby face starts beating me up, get this big pop. Like that's really all it is for me, is getting those reactions out of the crowd. And I'm good enough now to know that I don't have to kill myself to get those reactions.
And so we talked about your experience several times over the course of this discussion already, but I think it's very relevant to the AWF itself and the outfit that we're bringing this program today with. And you've been with the AWF pretty much since the beginning, I want to say. I've been around since 2010, and you've certainly preceded me. Over the years, what's your experience been with this company, and is there anything that you're still looking to accomplish that you have not yet had the opportunity to do so working under this umbrella?
Yeah, I mean, when I first got brought in, my first match, I believe, with AWF was a one-on-one with Lenny Lane. I think down in one of the either like
that gives
Red
any
Wing.
Context as far as time. That's
Yeah, that throws it back a little bit. Yeah, and it was really incredible because at the time, Lenny didn't really know me too much. He was recommended to work with me by the O'Neill twins, who were, I think, on the book at the time. And I show up. Yeah, the office mates, right. I show up, and I'd met Lenny before on previous shows. So, I mean, we knew who each other were, and we had like a first name basis rapport. So nothing like we weren't texting each other, anything like that. But after the match, I couldn't stop thanking him because he gave me so much and he made me look so good that night. And he did not have to at all. So that was a phenomenal start with AWF, and anybody who's been in an AWF locker room knows that it's just nothing short of entertaining anytime Tony DiNucci is around. I've garnered this relationship with him where I just love to razz him so much because he doesn't get all the time that I'm razzing him, and it's just so funny to see his reactions. But I will give credit to Tony. He's a good promoter. He finds all these venues that nobody would think about running, and he packs them full of 400 or 500 people a lot of the times. I mean, I've wrestled some of my biggest crowds for Tony DiNucci and AWF. I think one of the Elk River shows I wrestled on had like 1,800 people or something like that. So, they're fun shows. They're family oriented shows. So it's a lot of kids, and it's just fun to get reactions out of these kids who still think that this is like 100% real kind of thing. And like, I'm really getting dumped on my head and I'm going to die. But no, they bring an energy to shows that is unmatched by any other demographic, and it's fun. And I always know that I'm going to have a good time. Tony puts me in there with good guys, so it's a solid, fun experience. But man, it has been a ride.
And I will say it, in some of these towns that we will travel to in greater Minnesota, it's not just the kids.
That's very true. That's true. I actually did a show up in Hibbing, Minnesota. Man, this had to be like 08 or 09, and I was wrestling Benjamin Saylor, and he worked my leg for the majority of the match. And I swear to you, I could have gotten any one of them to take me to the hospital and pay my bills and all this. I mean, they bought it hook, line, and sinker. So yeah, bless the Minnesota fans for not always being on the up and up.
And even though they've seen a number of posters where rookie sensation Ryan Cruz was advertised after approaching a decade in the sport.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always apparently reinventing myself by staying the same. And so, yeah, that was a real funny thing that people were hitting me with in locker rooms. Like, oh my gosh, it's the rookie sensation Ryan Cruz. Like, welcome to the locker room, Greenhorn.
One of those came up in my Facebook memories just the other day, I think, and I just had to go, wait a minute, this is 2013 16. He's been around a while.
Yeah.
Might want to get that updated, but maybe not. Maybe there's an element of the crowd that sees this guy, sees that baby face, even though he's a heel, and wants to buy a ticket.
Yeah, and you know what? I think at that time though, I was a babyface. They were pushing me strong as a babyface, but yeah, the rookie sensation thing is. I mean, I guess I was like a rookie to like being pushed at AWF. So,
so speaking of Tony DiNucci here, who's been around the block, you don't have as many years on the tires as he does, but you've been around a while now. As you are past that 16-year mark, any injuries or any other setbacks or adversity that slowed you down throughout the course of your career?
Yeah, I've had like little bumps and bruises along the way. I mean, knock on wood, I've been very, very fortunate to not really have much that's taken me out of commission for an extended period of time. I mean, I've had concussions, stitches, twisted knees, pulled muscles, but I've never broken anything. I've never had to cancel bookings on the account of being injured or anything like that. So yeah, I've been very, very fortunate, and I know a lot of people who have not. And yeah, I mean, I obviously the body is wearing down. I definitely feel a lot older than 35 years old. But I see a chiropractor weekly. I take care of my body, trying to get the body weight down. I've been hovering right around like 195 to 200 for the better part of the last 2-3 years. So I'd like to take a little bit of weight off now the gyms are back open, get down to that 175 area, kind of ease up on my joints. But yeah, I'm feeling it. There's definitely there's no safety from at least something with this pro wrestling game. So yeah, very lucky, but still feeling the pain.
And I guess for most folks, just not having been on the shelf with extended injuries or broken bones or ACLs or anything like that, just you have to be able to look back and say that maybe that's a success in and of itself.
Totally. I mean, it's getting to the point now where I definitely take into account who I'm working with and things like that. And I'm very attentive to the ring a lot more than I previously was, because nobody's impervious to injury. It's going to happen to us all at one point or another, unless I were to take myself out of the game. Eventually that's going to happen. I definitely have more matches behind me than I do.
No one ever retires. You know how this works.
No one ever retires in this. Yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, it's always on my mind anytime I leave the house for a show is, will I get injured? But like I said, I've eased up my style of wrestling a little bit more. I'm a little bit more careful because, yeah, you just never know when or what's going to happen. My dad was always worried and always saying, like, if you end up in a wheelchair, I'll just set you up with the best TV service and I'll leave you. I won't be able to look at you. I'm like, oh, thanks, Dad. I love you too. But yeah, he means well with it in that he just doesn't want me to get seriously hurt. And you know what? I'm right there with him. I don't want that either.
So I'm guessing you're not hopping in the car heading out to the East Coast as much or if ever as you used to be. Right. So at this stage, what's keeping you motivated to keep going here in the sport, and what else do you want to get done before you decide to hang up those boots and those trunks?
Yeah. I just love entertaining fans, and the art, it sounds cliche and all that jazz, but the art of pro wrestling is just unlike any other mean of entertainment out there. It's drama, it's athleticism, it's direct fan interaction, and I just love that rush of having the crowd in the palm of my hand and being able to get away almost with murder and just getting a reaction out of them, and it's so much fun at the end of a show to have groups of people come up to me and be like, man, you were so entertaining, or you were the best part about the show, or I loved when you did this or did that. That's definitely what keeps me motivated. Previously, it was just about wrestling as much as I could, which I still absolutely love, but I love it for an entertainment aspect. I'm not traveling. Vince McMahon was never looking for a me. So I just was always very much under the understanding that take the shows that I'm on, give it my all, and hopefully people walk away feeling like they were entertained.
We threw it out there for questions from some fans and followers on social media. We did get a couple via the tweeters. We got a question here from Kevin. Cruz Shakalaka has been one of the best in Minnesota for years, so of course someone else trying to get themselves over.
Totally. But he's not wrong.
Would like to know what he views as his best match and why.
Oh, goodness, my best match. That's really hard. My favorite. I have two favorite singles. Well, yeah.
You can say two.
Three.
I don't think he's going to come after you too hard.
Okay. Well, Darren Corbin and I had a singles match with Echo Pro out of St. Cloud, Minnesota. This had to be, like circa 2011, 10, 11, 12.
Was this at the Armory or was this at the hockey arena? Because I think
this was at the Armory. This one had like Road Dogg Jesse James on the show.
Honky Tonk Man, I think.
Honky Tonk Man was there. Yeah, and it was Darren and I in the main event.
And we went out there.
Now. Yeah, actually, it's all on YouTube. You can find it's in like 3 different parts on YouTube. Yeah.
Search this out.
But we did like 30 minutes and just were on. It was so. I don't know. I don't want to say perfect because no match has ever been perfect, but we were just really on that night. We hit some good spots. The crowd was still hot after a long show. It was a big crowd too. We had a lot of friends in attendance, and we were just on. Like Darren and I have always been on with each other, whether we're tagging or one-on-one. But then the other match that comes to mind is one with Arya Davari. For AWF, we were out in Fargo doing a show, and he and I were in the main for the title. He was the champion at the time, and again, we just put in a half hour of just solid back and forth, and we get to the back, and John Johnson was like, that was one of the best matches I've ever seen, which is amazing coming from John Johnson, who is not an easy critic to impress. But yeah, we just went out there and tore the house down, and it was so much fun. And Arya's another one of those guys. He's probably my favorite opponent I've ever had. We just clicked all the time.
Another question here from someone who may not be necessarily a fan, but he found us on social media and submitted a question nonetheless. Chadwick Wentworth III wants me to ask you if you remember knocking him out with the Cruz kick, followed by a series of emoticons there. That probably brings back some memories for him. Any recollection of this event that he is referencing?
You know, I remember a good chunk of that match except for that kick. I do remember us getting back to the locker room and talking about it, and I was emphatically apologizing. I mean, thinking that he's just going to rip me apart. Because for those of you who don't know who this gentleman is, he is a 280-pound
He's a former AWF heavyweight champion too. So
100%. So yeah,
and a former guest on this program.
Well, there you go. Perfect. So you guys should have a great knowledge of him, but he is no small gentleman. But another one of my favorite opponents. I enjoy the big man, little man style for the aspect of being the Shawn Michaels against like the Undertaker or Sid Vicious, of just getting tossed around the ring. It's such a great visual for the crowd, and with guys like Chad who can just toss me and keep me in perfect safety the whole time, and then I thank him by knocking him out with my woo 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 Kenny Woo kick. But yeah, I do remember, and I'll never forget because he never lets me forget.
Few more questions for you. We're going to take these kind of more rapid fire.
Cool.
Your favorite ring attire over the years that you've ever used?
Oh man, I love our classic North Star Express, the green, gold, and white gear. And we would wear our hockey jerseys out to the ring that actually Darren's mom bought for us and had our names put on the back. That was sweet. But I love one of my more recent sets of gear. It's a knockoff of Eddie Murphy, or not? What's his name? Murphy in WWE. It's kind of got that like ripped, almost like tattered shorts that he used to wear. It kind of looks a little bit like, and it has Glacier colors too because Glacier was awesome. But yeah, those two sets of gear are probably my favorites.
Speaking of intellectual property, you used to have those RC tights. Did you ever get any mailings from those lawyers?
No, and I blatantly sold T-shirts with their logo right on the front too. There's no reason they shouldn't have contacted me. But you know what? They probably just like the attention.
At this stage, I think RC Cola probably is looking for any gimmick they can to still stay relevant.
Exactly. I was just out there to help them.
Been up and down the road, in not just the state of Minnesota, but on essentially the whole eastern half of this country. Favorite gas station chain?
Wawa. I love Wawa.
Where's that located?
That's all up and down the East Coast. They started like moving them more towards like the Southeast, but they are very prevalent in Pennsylvania.
Let's hope our friends at Quick Trip and others are not following us on Twitter, or else they might get indignant about these sorts of things.
Sorry about that.
Favorite Tony DiNucci match?
Oh, goodness. I always liked when he would wrestle guys who wore shirts, just because he would rip the shirt and chop the crap out of them. So I don't.
Udo.
Yeah, I don't
That guy
necessarily
went
have
through dozens of shirts.
He did. He was one of the main proponents of the complaint. But yeah, I don't necessarily think I have a favorite match of his. I just love what he would do to people that wore shirts.
Favorite cut of meat?
Ooh, gosh, that's tough. You know what? I go with a sirloin 9 times out of 10. I pick sirloin.
We understand also, in addition to being a skilled wrestler, you're a skilled bowler.
I am.
Share with the fans your high game.
I have 2 300 games under my belt.
That's a hell of an accomplishment, and to do that twice, very, very impressive. And that's more impressive than probably most things that most wrestlers will ever accomplish.
Probably.
Your favorite bowling alley in town?
Elsie's.
Elsie's, that's a good.
I love Elsie's.
Favorite casino, resort, hotel in Las Vegas?
Oh boy. Gosh, that's a good one. New York, New York.
Good, well-rounded place there.
Yeah.
That's all I have in the way of questions. Before we let you go, how about you share your social media presence with the fans at home, and if there's any merchandise that you have available for sale these days over the interwebs?
Yeah, totally. I do have 8x10s and little Cruz pins currently available. Those are the 8x10s are $5 and the pins are $10. But you can find me at Cruz Shakalaka. That is CRUZ SHAKALAKA. So just think Boom Shakalaka, but throw Cruz right in the beginning. And that is both for Twitter and Instagram. And I think
if folks
TikTok
want that merch, just hit you up on there and you'll get back to them.
Absolutely.
All right. Before we let you go, any parting words you have for the AWF wrestling fans?
Tune in, because when this all ends, I'm going to do some stuff.
Is that a shot across the bow to someone like JDX in particular, who's our heavyweight champion, or are there others that you have your eyes on?
I've not held that belt, and I think I look good with belts. I mean, I've had the MIW championship for over 200 days now, so I like belts. I like them a lot.
Ryan Cruz, always a pleasure to see you. You take care now.
Thanks, DJ. Appreciate you.
And that'll do it for today's episode of the Draper Dialogues. Again, thanking Ryan Cruz for taking some time to join us. I always enjoy these treks down memory lane with fellas like him who have so much insight to share, not just with their own experience in this sport, but a broad perspective on wrestling in general. If you've got someone you want to see interviewed on this program, be sure to let us know either by leaving a comment or reaching out directly. I am available on the Twitter at DJ Danielson. And again, if you're catching us on the Facebook feed, be sure to subscribe as well to our podcast, available on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, and so many other podcast distributors that I could probably not even name them, but I know you can find the Draper Dialogues there, so that's all that matters. Again, can't wait to bring AWF action back to you live. Hope to have news on that in the near future, of course only when it's safe for us to do so. Again, thanking you for joining us on behalf of everyone at the AWF, wishing you all the best. So long, everyone.